What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. SummerSlam, the biggest party of the summer, and is WWE's second biggest premium live event behind, of course, the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania. And so with this weekend being the 2024 installment of SummerSlam, I thought that for today's episode, we're going to be going through the entire timeline of SummerSlam from 1988 all the way until the most recent one as of the recording of this video being 2023, and determine what if every SummerSlam main event was different. And before I begin this video, I should mention that if you comment about 2024 SummerSlam or 2025 SummerSlam, I'm not going to repeat this video every single year to update another SummerSlam to it. It's just a waste of time when I can do another what if. And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share this to all your friends, subscribe, and press the notification bell for when future episodes get released, and leave a comment down below about today's topic or suggesting a future topic for an episode of Pro Wrestling What If. So starting off with SummerSlam 1988, the main event was the Mega Powers of Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage against the Mega Bucks, Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase in a tag team match. But if it wasn't that, I think it would have been the Ultimate Warrior versus Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental Championship. Even though, yes, this was basically a 3-minute squash, but it's the fact that we witnessed the ending of the longest Intercontinental Championship reign at the time is what makes this special, and especially with the Ultimate Warrior on the rise, it makes it an even big moment because WWE were indeed creating stars at this point. SummerSlam 1989, the main event was Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake against Randy Savage and Zeus in a tag team match. But if it wasn't that match, I think it would have been the Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude for the Intercontinental Championship. Mainly, of course, because Rick Rude and Warrior did face off at WrestleMania 5, where we did see Rick Rude take the Intercontinental Championship from Ultimate Warrior. Now we have the rematch set here for SummerSlam, where we did end off seeing Ultimate Warrior regain the championship once again. So I think this match definitely would have still had the fans sent home happy, just like the actual main event. SummerSlam 1990, the main event was Rick Rude versus Ultimate Warrior in a steel cage match for the WWE Championship, but if it wasn't this match, it would have been Hulk Hogan versus Earthquake. Of course, mainly for the fact that Hulk Hogan was the face of the WWE at this point, and that during this time, a lot of the main events had to feature Hulk Hogan, so it was a surprise that Hogan wasn't even the main event of this SummerSlam. SummerSlam 1991, the main event was a 3-on-2 handicap match with Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior against the group known as the Triangle of Terror, featuring Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, aka Iron Sheik, and General Adnan. But had it not been that match, it would have been Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Championship. When people talk about SummerSlam classics, a lot of people refer back to this match between Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, especially the crowning moment of seeing Bret Hart win the Intercontinental Championship for the very first time. So it would have been a feel-good moment to see a hard-working superstar like Bret Hart starting to make his way to the top by winning the major workhorse title of the Intercontinental Championship. SummerSlam 1992, the main event was the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith against Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been the Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage for the WWE Championship. Had it not been for the fact that, of course, the British Bulldog was from the UK, where SummerSlam 1992 was being held, I truly believe that, of course, by namesake value, that the Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage would have been the main event, especially having the WWE Championship on the line. SummerSlam 1993, the main event was Lex Luger versus Yokozuna for the WWE Championship, but had it not been this match, it probably would have been Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez in a Rest in Peace match. Now trust me, I'm sure that a lot of you probably would be suggesting Shawn Michaels versus Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Championship. However, this feud with The Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez would date back to the Rumble earlier on in the year, and they would even have that infamous terrible match at WrestleMania 9. So I could see a world where if it wasn't the world title match, that they would have went with this gimmick style match that ends a long feud, as the main event of SummerSlam. SummerSlam 1994, the main event was Undertaker versus fake Undertaker, but if it wasn't that, it probably would have been Owen Hart versus Bret Hart in the steel cage match for the WWE Championship. And the fact that this match wasn't the main event of SummerSlam 94 just mind boggles me, because we had witnessed one of, if not the greatest opening match in WWE history with Bret versus Owen at WrestleMania 10, so the fact that this match now being for the WWE title was not the main event, they never had this ridiculous storyline of Undertaker and Undertaker, this most likely would have been the main event. SummerSlam 1995, the main event was King Mabel versus Diesel for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels in the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. Of course, we witnessed the Razor Ramon-Shawn Michaels match from WrestleMania 10 the year prior. So had WWE not relied on the World Championship to be the main event, this probably could have been the main event because of how amazing that very first match was, even though that there was no way of topping off that WrestleMania 10 match. SummerSlam 1996, the main event was Vader versus Shawn Michaels for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Undertaker versus Mankind in the Boiler Room Brawl. Undertaker and Mankind had been feuding since basically Mankind debuted right after WrestleMania 12, and especially with the ending of this match to where we seen Paul Bearer betray The Undertaker is a big enough moment to where I could see a world where this could have been the main event. SummerSlam 1997, the main event was Bret Hart versus Undertaker for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Stone Cold versus Owen Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. This is where I feel it's one of those cases where if it's not the World Championship, then they would rely on the secondary title of the Intercontinental Championship. And especially imagine a world where we witness Stone Cold breaking his neck in the main event of SummerSlam would have been a crazy moment to see either live on pay-per-view or if you were there in attendance at that event. SummerSlam 1998, the main event was Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Triple H versus The Rock in the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, for the past couple of months prior to this, we had seen D-Generation X and the Nation of Domination have a feud with one another, and this was basically the climax of that feud, seeing two of the top members of each group and essentially being the two next guys in case anything happened to Stone Cold, and a lot of people do consider this as maybe the best match of the night of SummerSlam 1998, to where this could have been possibly the main event. SummerSlam 1999, the main event was Mankind, Triple H, and Stone Cold in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship, but had it not been this match, it probably would have been The Rock versus Billy Gunn in the Kiss My Ass match. Originally, I actually wanted to go with the Test versus Shane McMahon Greenwich Street fight, considering of the storyline that was involved with that. However, with The Rock clearly being groomed as the next top babyface with Stone Cold soon having his neck surgery, and the fact that Billy Gunn had won that year's King of the Ring, that I feel like it would have been destined that these two would have taken the main event. SummerSlam 2000, the main event was Kurt Angle, The Rock, and Triple H in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it would have been the first TLC match with the Dudleys, Hardys, and Edge and Christian. If we learned anything after watching WrestleMania 2000 is that no one should be following the Dudleys, Hardys, and Edge and Christian's match, because that ladder match at WrestleMania 2000 was easily the match of the night, and people still to this day when talking about that pay-per-view talk about that match. So if it's going to be any match that's going to be the main event besides the World Championship match, it would be the match that most likely no one is topping with that first TLC match. SummerSlam 2001, the main event was The Rock versus Booker T for the WCW Championship, but had it not been that match, it would have been Kurt Angle versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE Championship. This is one of those cases where if one world title is not main eventing, then it definitely would be the other world championship. And I think the fact that The Rock won the championship in that match was the reason why it's the main event, while this WWE Championship ended up having a DQ finish. SummerSlam 2002, 2002, the main event was Brock Lesnar versus The Rock for the undisputed WWE Championship, but if it wasn't that match, it would have been Shawn Michaels versus Triple H in the unsanctioned match. SummerSlam 2002 was a very stacked card and may very well be, in a lot of people's opinions, the best SummerSlam of all time. But I don't think anyone's going to argue with me by saying that the Shawn Michaels and Triple H match shouldn't have been the main event. This was an excellent match from top to bottom, and witnessing the first match of Shawn Michaels in 4 years. And overall, even with the ending of Triple H hitting Shawn Michaels with the sledgehammer, people would have went home happy because it was such an amazing match between Shawn Michaels and Triple H. SummerSlam 2003, the main event was the Elimination Chamber match for the World Heavyweight Championship with Chris Jericho, Goldberg, Kevin Nash, Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. But had it not been that match, it would have been Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship. Although the Elimination Chamber match was the absolute right call, it's once again that scenario of if one world title is not main eventing, it's most likely the other. SummerSlam 2004, the main event was Randy Orton against Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship, but had it not been that match, it could have been the triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship between Batista, Chris Jericho, and Edge. I decided to go with this triple threat match considering that it would really cater towards the Toronto, Ontario crowd, since 2/3 of the participants featured people that were from Canada, with Chris Jericho being from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and of course the Intercontinental Champion Edge being from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And even though I believe Edge did get booed out of the building, even though he's the hometown hero, this would have been an excellent match to actually main event, knowing that two Canadians were involved. SummerSlam 2005, the main event was Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Chris Jericho versus John Cena for the WWE Championship. Now, of course, it made sense because of namesake that it was Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan main eventing the show. And if it wasn't that, it would have been one of the two World Championship matches, so it was either Jericho and Cena or Batista versus JBL for the World Heavyweight Championship, and I think there was more star power between Jericho and Cena rather than Batista and JBL to have that main event spot had Hogan and Shawn Michaels not even happened at all. SummerSlam 2006, the main event was John Cena versus Edge for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Hulk Hogan versus Randy Orton. Now, Randy Orton was just about to hit the end of his Legend Killer run, and he had went through so many different legends, even the year prior in 2005, spending the majority of the year feuding with The Undertaker with a couple of wins over him. So really, the only active legend left over from the WWE he needed to face was, of course, the Immortal One Hulk Hogan. And this easily could have been the main event because of that story of Randy Orton needing to slay the legend of Hulk Hogan, but of course of the name value of the biggest face of the 1980s and early 90s of Hulk Hogan being involved in the match. SummerSlam 2007, the main event was Randy Orton versus John Cena for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, I think it could have been Triple H versus King Booker. Although I could have went with the Great Khali versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship, I think that the storyline involving Triple H's return would have been a little bit better, and so I think WWE could have made a bigger deal out of Triple H's return by having him be the main event of that year's SummerSlam, since he was actually on the cover of the SummerSlam poster. SummerSlam 2008, the main event was Undertaker versus Edge inside Hell in a Cell, but had it not been that match, I think it would have been Batista versus John Cena. Now, this is a case where I feel either of the World Championship matches didn't have enough star power behind them to be deserving of the main event. The World Heavyweight Championship match was CM Punk versus JBL, and the WWE Championship match was Triple H versus the Great Khali, and I don't think they would have wanted Great Khali main eventing SummerSlam. So having basically the two guys who had actually won world championships at WrestleMania 21 and were deemed the faces of the Ruthless Aggression era facing off in a match definitely screamed out main event potential, especially because I believe at this point this would have been one of the first times ever that we actually seen John Cena and Batista face off one-on-one. SummerSlam 2009, the main event was CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy in a TLC match for the World Heavyweight Championship, but had it not been that match, it would have been John Cena versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. Not only is this a case of, once again, if it's not one world title match, it's gotta be the other, but of course you have one of the biggest rivalries coming out of the Ruthless Aggression era of John Cena and Randy Orton in this match. This is around the time where basically, even if it wasn't a championship match, anything that revolved John Cena as a part of the event most likely was going to be a main event match, whether it's at SummerSlam, a B-tier pay-per-view, or even WrestleMania. SummerSlam 2010, the main event was the Team WWE versus Team Nexus 7-on-7 elimination tag team match, but had it not been that match, I think it would have been Rey Mysterio versus Kane for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, even though this doesn't seem like a main event worthy match, it's what happens after the match is why it could have been the main event. And that was, of course, the return of The Undertaker after he had been put through a vegetative state, and it was discovered that Kane was actually the one that took out The Undertaker. In which I believe that same logic is why I think that the prior year's SummerSlam had CM Punk and Jeff Hardy involved as the main event, considering that we seen that spot where Undertaker appeared after the match. So with The Undertaker basically doing that same thing a year after at SummerSlam 2010 is where I could see a reasoning between Kane and Rey Mysterio being the main event of that year's SummerSlam. SummerSlam 2011, the main event was John Cena versus CM Punk for what would be the undisputed WWE Championship with Triple H as referee, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Randy Orton versus Christian for the World Heavyweight Championship. Randy Orton and Christian had basically been the top feud of the SmackDown brand since the 2011 draft. And with this being the culmination of that feud and seeing Randy Orton win the World Heavyweight Championship at this event would have been a feel-good moment to end off SummerSlam, instead of somehow seeing Kevin Nash take out CM Punk and Alberto Del Rio cashing in Money in the Bank and winning the WWE title. SummerSlam 2012, the main event was Triple H versus Brock Lesnar, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been the triple threat match between John Cena, Big Show, and CM Punk for the WWE Championship. Once again, like I mentioned with I believe 2009, because John Cena was the face of the WWE, pretty much any match revolved around him would most likely be the main event of a show for the most part. But also because this is a World Championship match and this had much more star power in the match than the World Heavyweight Championship match we had, which I believe was Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio, and there definitely was more star power with this triple threat match than there was with that World Heavyweight title match. SummerSlam 2013, the main event was Daniel Bryan versus John Cena for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it could have been CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar in the no DQ match. This match from top to bottom was easily the best match of the card, and especially with the storyline behind it with the betrayal of Paul Heyman with CM Punk. And this match definitely had enough star power for the main event, since you had a mega superstar like Brock Lesnar and of course CM Punk, who had just finished earlier on in the year his 434-day reign as WWE Champion. SummerSlam 2014, the main event was Brock Lesnar versus John Cena for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. Now, originally, I actually wanted to go with the Stephanie McMahon and Brie Bella match with the storyline angle involving that. However, at this time, I know that WWE wouldn't have given women a main event slot, so the next best choice would have been a top star like Randy Orton, with now a soon-to-be top star in Roman Reigns being the main event. SummerSlam 2015, the main event was Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker, but had it not been that match, it would have been the winner-takes-all match for the United States and WWE Championships between John Cena and Seth Rollins. And overall, just because of that stipulation right there, not only one title is on the line, but two titles on the line, to where it definitely makes sense that this match could have been the main event. SummerSlam 2016, the main event was Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar, but in this this case, I think it would have been Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins for the inaugural Universal Championship. And even though there was the WWE Championship match with Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler, the match between Finn Balor had a bit more star power between those two, plus the fact that we could have had a main event crowning the first Universal Champion, which we did see that with Finn Balor. SummerSlam 2017, the main event was the Fatal 4-Way match between Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, and Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. However, in this case, I think it would have been Shinsuke Nakamura and Jinder Mahal for the WWE Championship. Now, although this would have been a terrible main event, the likeliness would be, once again, if one world title isn't main eventing, it most likely would be the other. And WWE definitely had the rocket strap attached to Jinder Mahal at this time with the championship, but realistically, if it was my decision, I definitely would have had the AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens match with Shane McMahon as special guest referee as the main event. SummerSlam 2018, the main event was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship, but had it not been that match, I think it would have been Ronda Rousey versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. Now, women at this time were starting to get a lot of chances in different scenarios, especially 2018 being the first year that a women's Royal Rumble was happening. So I think in this case, especially because women main eventing WrestleMania didn't happen until the following WrestleMania of 35 in 2019, that they could have tested out the water by having women main event a SummerSlam before going to main event a WrestleMania. And especially with how much star power Ronda Rousey has already, she definitely could have had her match with Alexa Bliss as the main event of SummerSlam. SummerSlam 2019, the main event was Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship, but had it not been that match, I think it could have been Trish Stratus versus Charlotte Flair. Now, at this point, we could live in a world where we see women main event a SummerSlam because earlier on in the year, we seen that triple threat women's title match as the main event of WrestleMania. So if women were able to main event WrestleMania, they definitely could have main evented a SummerSlam at this point. And especially with the event happening in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you have basically the hometown hero Trish Stratus facing off against Charlotte Flair in basically what would be a once-in-a-lifetime match. So this could have been a decent enough draw as the main event of SummerSlam that year. SummerSlam 2020, the main event was The Fiend Bray Wyatt against Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship, but had it not been that match, it probably would have been Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Once again, this goes along with the fact that, of course, if it's not one world title, it most likely was going to be the other as the main event, and I think the only reason that the Universal title main evented this SummerSlam was, of course, at the end where we seen the return of Roman Reigns, which would begin his reign as the Tribal Chief. SummerSlam 2021, the main event was John Cena versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, but had it not been this match, I think it would have been Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. Although, of course, a lot of Goldberg matches aren't the greatest, it kind of goes with the fact that, once again, if it's not one world title, it is the other. Plus, I think with the way that they ended it, where it's basically a referee stoppage and then Bobby Lashley had hit the Hurt Lock on Goldberg's son, could have been a very crazy way to end off SummerSlam. Plus, unfortunately, I just don't think for some reason that they would actually have given Seth Rollins versus Edge that main event slot. SummerSlam 2022, the main event was Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns in a last man standing match for the undisputed Universal Championship, but had it not been this match, I think it would have been the Street Profits versus the Usos for the undisputed tag team championships. Now, I believe SummerSlam 2022 was actually the first premium live event under the regime of Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, as creative. And not only do I feel that Triple H not only based things off of obviously star power and what would make the most money, but of course what is very storyline driven. And of course the biggest thing when it came to 2022 and 2023 was the Bloodline storyline. So if it wasn't Roman Reigns main eventing, then I think anything involved with the Bloodline storyline would have main evented SummerSlam. And so having the Usos defend the titles against the Street Profits, and then even having Jeff Jarrett be the referee in Nashville, Tennessee, where he's basically from, would have had a decent enough fan reaction to where it could have been the main event of this show. And last but not least, as of the recording of this video, is SummerSlam 2023, where the main event was Jey Uso against Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. But had it not been this match, it probably would have been Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. Of course, this story began the night after WrestleMania 39, 9, where Brock Lesnar turned his back on Cody Rhodes, and of course already seeing that first match with Cody winning at Backlash and then having the next match at Night of Champions where Brock Lesnar won, that the culmination of this feud definitely could have been the main event, especially with two big stars like Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar being involved in this match.